I've played college football 26 a few times now, and I can finally share more of what I've experienced, which is nice because it's been so hard to hold parts in while there's been leaks going on. Today, EA just dropped a 40+ page deep dive that's loaded, so I'll be covering that and the new trailer with gameplay. But I can also talk about parts that didn't make the cut. When we were at EA a few weeks ago, I got to ask devs about specific gameplay stuff that I wanted fixed badly. And we'll get to all of that in this video, but let's just start out watching this trailer.
Welcome to the EA Sports College Football 26 Gameplay Deep Dive. We'll share details about a massive playbook expansion, all new player types and abilities.
I'm going to try so hard not to pause a lot here at the beginning, but there is a whole new system whenever it comes to player archetypes. Y'all have probably seen some of the leaks if you're in tune with it, and also abilities.
Improvements to wear and tear, new control mechanics, stadium pulse, physics-based tackling, and a lot more. Let's get into it. With real coaches comes a massive playbook expansion. For the first time ever, over 300 real college football coaches bring their unique styles and authentic play calling.
Okay, so yes, there are new coaches in this game, 300+ real ones, but there are some coaches that are missing. You've probably already heard stuff like Deion Sanders isn't there, Bill Belichick isn't. But for most teams, you are going to have your real coach in there and also your real offensive and defensive coordinator. It doesn't go any deeper than that, but that's because the staff in Dynasty is just those 3 coaches.
Delivering distinct program identities and more play calling variety. Over 2,800 new plays and over 45 new formations have...
That is a lot of new plays and formations, by the way. I mean, you're going to be finding stuff in every playbook that wasn't there last year, so we just got to give our props, at least in that scenario. I think one of the devs said last year they had like 7,500 plays in the game, so if you add 2,800 to that, that's like a 35% increase to the plays across the entire game. And it's going to make a difference for sure. They kind of had to do that with putting real coaches in the game.
Have been installed. New option types, motion types, bizarre plays and formations from last season are at your...
I have to talk about this too. You're probably wondering, what is up with this camera angle on this play? You can see that if you're running something like an RPO, this is a backed up angle. This is not the default look, but you can actually go to this and it'll help on play calls like this one. And the few times I've played now, I didn't even discover this angle, but I'm pretty sure it's just the one that if you hit the D-pad down once, it's that one. It's not going to be the normal one. And I just wanted to make sure I cleared that up since I saw people a little confused by it.
Last season are at your fingertips, and they're all tuned so you can craft a strategy that feels like your favorite program. 10 brand new player archetypes and rebalanced abilities.
So I had no choice but to pause because as you can see, they've actually updated positions in college football. We are no longer going to have the default defensive ends, the left outside linebackers, the middle linebackers. They've changed all of that. Instead, you're going to have your Mikes, your Wills, your Sams. You're going to have edges. It's not going to be like it was last year, but it's pretty easy to adjust to it, and it actually fits football better. From this gameplay clip, we can also start to take a look at all of the new archetypes that they added. Like for edges, there's physical freaks. This was not something that you could find on a left end, right end last year. And it took me so long to pause on the receiver one, but I have to talk about this because every single archetype for receivers has been completely overhauled. You're no longer just going to be targeting stuff like deep threats in recruiting because they've completely overhauled it, and there are some better ones than Speedster. That's all I'll say for now. It also does seem like whenever it comes to stuff like speed on most of the receivers, it's a lot lower than it was default last year whenever they come in as freshmen, but that's because you can control wherever you upgrade your stats. That's another leak that's come out. This is what happens whenever there's a beta. We'll get to most of it whenever the Dynasty Deep Dive comes out. And I'm just enjoying showcasing some of these new archetypes. So like with your Sam, we have one that's Lurker. That one is very good. And I've been trying forever to pause on the running back one. I just can't get it, but the whole running back position has also been overhauled whenever it comes to archetypes. And then that of course translates to Road to Glory 2, whatever you select. Finally, I got one of them. It's an East-West playmaker. That's Ruben Owens. And I should probably get back to watching this trailer at some point.
And rebalanced abilities, now 84 total, are designed to showcase the wide variety of skill sets we see in college football.
Oh, I'd be so mad if
Saturday.
that happened to me.
Improvements to how abilities scale are based on performance. When a player gets hot, their physicals receive a substantial boost, and platinum tier abilities will automatically upgrade to the new, more powerful Heisman tier.
So this can only happen if you're going off with a player that already has a platinum ability or the tier below it, which I think is star. It's almost like an X Factor in Madden, except you're not guaranteed any specific result. You can't go into a game with a player having a Heisman tier ability. The max they can start out a game with is Platinum, and if they start playing really well, then it goes up to Heisman. When it comes to abilities and how much a player can jump up in a game, the max is 2 tiers, so that's why I said you can't go in with somebody that has like an impact ability at the very bottom and then have it jump all the way up to Heisman because they've been going off throughout the game. It can't go up that much. What's crazy is in the few times I've played the game, I haven't even seen this Heisman ability. I'm sure it's been there. I think it's pretty rare to get, but there's so much going on the field, I haven't even noticed it.
The Heisman tier captures those unexplainable moments when a player single-handedly takes over a game.
What a catch.
New field vision introduces more realistic challenges for quarterbacks. Shorter quarterbacks will now have more limited vision when surrounded by taller linemen, and receiver icons will fade as they come in and out of view.
You see this new orange bar as well? I think this was meant to replace the red one for those hard passes, but it does drive me a little bit crazy. With all the stuff that they're mentioning here, I have to point out one thing I've noticed when playing against the computer, playing against other users, is quarterbacks are far more inaccurate than they were last year, and I think it's because they want a bigger gap between the stars and the regular guys. It really feels like defense is going to be overpowered this year because they made the coverage stats better. There's more adjustments you can make on defense to pretty much cover anything out there possible. And they've even increased the pursuit, which I'm actually not a fan of. I wanted to have more open gameplay, more plays that shouldn't necessarily happen, but you make one little cut and you get out of there. I'll say this right now, I've talked to multiple devs that worked on the gameplay. They said they didn't do anything to slow things down. They didn't change anything on the back end to make things feel slower, but I still think this feels a little bit slower than 25. And it might have something to do with the pursuit being raised, or the defensive players having better coverages, or just the fact that all these builds I've been playing on aren't going to be what the final release is. That is going to be something I'm curious to hear y'all's opinions on, though, if you notice the gameplay feels a little bit slower. I'm really not sure what causes it.
To ensure balance around how different abilities affected wear and tear during hits and tackles, every ability in the game was reviewed and adjusted.
Look at that injury. Okay, so yeah, they're going to talk about the sliders here. All of these sliders are in Dynasty, so you can customize wear and tear for it to work however you want. And I also got a little bit more clarity on what went wrong. Whenever it was working, it was a great system, but there were definitely a few things on the back end that weren't correct that caused it to be really bad sometimes. It eventually ended up getting fixed, and one thing I probably didn't realize is if you're going to run into some tackles with your quarterback and take major hits, you're going to lose a lot of wear and tear, and I've just never been used to that in a game before. That definitely had a big impact on how I felt about wear and tear, or even when you look over at the stamina and fatigue when you're playing Road to Glory with a wide receiver or running back. If you didn't adjust the slider, then you weren't getting out on the field more than half the time. I don't know if they addressed that specifically for Road to Glory. I would sure hope that they did. I didn't ask it though, so I don't know 100%. I don't want to say that I do. And worst case scenario, you just drop down the slider. That's why it's nice having sliders. The more control they give us, the more we can use them to make the gameplay play the way that we want it to if they don't get it right.
Well, auto sub options let you tailor personnel decisions to strategically handle wear and tear for every position. Take complete control with adjustable impact settings and battle real-world conditions with new weather modifiers that impact wear and tear.
Another question y'all are probably going to have, because we have seen the snow in Madden 26. Are they going to have that heavy snow in College Football 26? Not at the moment. I don't know what it would take to get it over from Madden, since I would assume the games are pretty similar. It'd be nice to see it because that heavy snow is so hard to play in. I didn't score a single point, believe it or not, whenever I played on Madden 26 in the heavy snow. If you don't know what I'm talking about, this is it right here. As you can see, it's very hard to see in it. It makes the effects so strong. But when I was a kid, that's what I would have dreamed of whenever I was playing in the heavy snow. It looks better than snow has in any football game recently, because it does look a little off. And I just really hope in the future they can bring that over to College Football 26, because it would be sick. It just wasn't there on any of the builds that we played. I feel like I've been rambling a lot throughout this trailer so far, though. There's just so much I've been wanting to talk about. I haven't been able to say for a bit. Let's keep playing it, though.
Packed wear and tear. And you'll get instant feedback with new pre-snap visual cues that can affect a player's demeanor, indicating their condition right on the field.
That was something I didn't notice whenever I've been playing it, but what I do know is whenever it comes to like the home field advantage, if you have a player that's closer to you on the field like a running back versus the receiver out on the outside, you have a better chance at the hot route working on the running back. They did overhaul a little bit of that. I'm assuming they're going to get to that in the gameplay deep dive, though.
Updates to physics-based tackling make better tackles actually feel better. New tackle types like wrap catch tackles and lunges, and new timing-based skill mechanics offer more tools to disrupt and dictate the game. with new authentic audio for big hits that adds realism and variety to defense.
Now, this is something I want to talk about because when they first mentioned this during the presentation this year, I got very worried because a lot of us didn't like Madden 25 gameplay. This is something they have pulled over from Madden from last year, except it is not the one that was in Madden 25. It's a 2.0, way better fixed. They kind of figured out all the stuff that made it not as good, and then they updated it. I think you're starting to notice a trend where the college and Madden games are going to share more of the stuff that makes football feel like football. It's not going to be separate. Like if you have wear and tear in college, it probably should be in the NFL too. That's why I'm probably going to have some fun saying that Madden 26 is a college football 25 reskin after all the comments that happened last year. But whenever it comes to these bigger hits, you definitely feel that. I haven't really noticed any issues with it. The only thing, again, that I'm not the biggest fan of when it comes to the gameplay this year is the pursuit has been raised, so there's a lot more tackles where last year you might have been able to slip out of there. We'll see what it's like on launch, though, and maybe I'm in the minority, or maybe it's just something that I think's there that's not actually in the game.
And variety to defense. New dynamic subs allow real-time roster management without breaking from the action, enhancing the flow and strategy of every game. Make informed personnel decisions.
As you can see right here, you're going to be able at any moment to pull up subs. Now, they're not going to go in for that play, of course. They're going to go in for the next one. But once you get a hang of how to actually use this feature, it is super nice because you can see stuff like where they're struggling with their wear and tear, their status on some of their fatigue, their overall. And this is going to be for both offense and defense. If you want to reset to just your starters after making some changes for a drive, you can do that as well. So this is going to allow you to manage the wear and tear better and have a little bit more control without having to go to a menu.
And get your starters back out there with one button press. A rebuild of offensive and defensive line interactions redefines trench battles. Control the direction of your blocks with new block steering, which factors in player attributes like strength and momentum for more realistic line of scrimmage play. And the addition of stunts and twists.
This is something, stunts and twists, I was sure they were going to get to. I'm not sure how many people are going to use them, probably more on the Dynasty side than anything else, just because it probably is a little confusing for most of the casuals. But all you have to do is double tap a button whenever selecting the play, and it's going to pop up all these different ones that you can choose between, so it is something that's easy to use once you get a hang of it. Back to like the block steering stuff, I don't really feel comfortable talking about it because I haven't figured out how to use it. I'm not the gameplay guy, I'm more of the menus, the Dynasty, even a little bit of Road to Glory. So when it comes to the gameplay, that was out of my realm. I didn't really get to the point where I was testing it, but can we just talk about how good the scoreboard looks down here? I don't think I've talked about it yet. The new scoreboard looks so much better than 25's. This clip also made it seem like you can control your offensive line while running, as they showed on that clip. I'm not sure how to do that, but you might be able to. There's genuinely just so much depth in the gameplay to the point where you can get your players to perform however you want them to. If they're doing something wrong, there's a way to correct it, and it creates a very big skill gap. I really like that because if you play casually, you can still play casually. You don't have to get super deep into it, but if you want to be immersed, that option is also there, and you can control everything. It's not just whenever it comes to like Dynasty Road to Glory, where it makes it hard to play 25 after experiencing 26. It also is that way on the gameplay, especially if it just gets a little bit quicker.
Addition of stunts and twists delivers more depth and control in pass rush. 12 different types of stunts offer a range of strategic options.
There's the Heisman.
Before the snap, providing a new layer to the chess match at the line of scrimmage. We're introducing adjustable defensive zones for more precise control over pass coverage. Adjust the depth of where you're safe.
Now, this is really neat right here. You're able to put your safeties basically anywhere on the field. If you set them deep, they will be sitting 30 yards back from the line of scrimmage, and that's going to be ideal for the end of the half or something. If somebody's running all over you, as you can see right here, you want to bring them in close. You can adjust their width, and you can also adjust like whether or not they're on the strong side of the field near the tight end. So when you combine that with being able to extend your zone anywhere on the field with those custom zone drops, then you really have full control over your defense like you had full control over your offense last year. Again, this creates a huge skill gap, especially for the players that want to get deep into it. If you don't want to, you don't really need to use it.
These lineup and coaching adjustments. Fine-tune your defensive strategies in real time and outsmart opponents. When you're on the home field advantage side of Stadium Pulse, it's a beautiful thing. But for visitors, Stadium Pulse in College Football 26 is louder, tougher, and more personal.
You know how hard it was back in 25? For them to make it more difficult in 26, I mean, they've done it for stuff like night games. They've done it for rivalries. They have definitely taken a huge overhaul to it. But look at this, man. We got Kentucky here. Clearfield, not a real quarterback. He's been in basically all of the early builds. This is obviously not going to be the roster that's in the final game. But Kentucky made it to a trailer, so I'm happy. I didn't even notice it at first. But you can only adjust some of the routes. I'm actually surprised that this guy right here, you can't adjust his route, but you can the B receiver. And another little detail to the Stadium Pulse thing is we got low Stadium Pulse on there. There are some new advertisers in the game that pop up, though one of them was super repetitive during the early builds. You saw Mountain Dew in the background of the stadium boards in like every stadium. Again, most of this stuff probably not going to be the way that it is whenever the game's on release, but if it is that way, they're getting some great sponsor deal. I also think this is a good time to mention, just because I'm thinking about it right now, whenever you roll out with your quarterback, if you want to use Playmaker, it isn't the same control as it was last year because you can actually juke behind the line of scrimmage, and I don't like it. I'll probably get used to it as the year goes on, but now instead of just hitting your right stick to have the Playmaker, that right stick is going to be able to juke for you. You have to hold down L2 and hit the right stick, and then the player will move wherever you guide him. At first, this will lead to a ton of sacks, a ton of stuff happening that you don't really want to happen, but again, it's something that can be adjusted, and you can juke behind the line of scrimmage. Just wanted to touch on that while I was thinking about it.
Tougher and more personal, elevating the chaos of night games at already tough-to-play places. More intense camera shake, new visual disruptions, and distorted clocks will throw off your timing and communication.
I didn't notice that. I didn't even notice the clock would change. Now, this meter does look right, but there is also a new look on the kicking meter, which you probably just saw. This is where all sorts of stuff is fading out. Once you hit a couple kicks, it'll go back to the normal one, but you have to actually establish that you're going to hit these kicks, and it adds a whole new element, making kicking even harder than it used to be. I think after like a week, we all got used to the old meter, but I will say, kicking is harder on 26. And like last year, if you miss some kicks, it's going to continue to get more difficult.
Disruptions and distorted clocks will throw off your timing and communication with dynamic intensity depending on the game situation or career moment.
There is definitely a dynamic intensity. So like, let's say you get a 30-yard passing play. That's going to gradually make the Stadium Pulse effects go down by quite a bit. But I'm going to assume we've all been to football games before. Those huge plays only affect the crowd for like first and second down. Once you get to third down again, the crowd is roaring and they're going to get a stop. It works the same in college football 26. So you have that big play. If you don't continue to have big plays after that, continue to move the chains, then you're going to have to deal with the crowd effects again. I really like how they adjusted that because it was decent in 25, but it's an improvement in 26.
Pre-order the MVP bundle.
Well,
includes both
that
EA Sports.
looks like it's about it for the trailer. We also have the deep dive coming up, of course, which I'm going to get all sorts into. But I don't have it tonight, and I'm going to the Pacers game against OKC. I'm hoping they don't close out the finals, so I probably won't get to it till tomorrow. And the last thing I want to say that's on my mind at the moment, just talking about gameplay that I remember, is horizontal movement is not as effective. This affects people like me that liked running the jet sweeps, the speed options, even the wildcat formations. I've noticed that so far, especially on the harder difficulties, it's just not as effective as it used to be. You might want to keep that in mind when you play your friends for the first time, unless, again, this is something that could change. Everything I've played could change, but I'll be back with you all whenever we get the whole deep dive. So if you keep up with the NBA Finals, I'm obviously in an amazing mood right now. The Pacers just forced a Game 7, but now we have the deep dive to look through. I still got my shirt on from the game. And this is where things always get the most juicy. There's some basic stuff always in the trailer. I feel like I talked through quite a few things about gameplay I maybe remembered or have noticed recently, but now we can actually start to dive into some of this. Just because it's already pretty late, I'm probably going to do a lot of reading and skimming around off camera and just point out the more important parts this time instead of going through every single thing. And if you're wondering what their 3 core pillars are that they're going to focus on when it comes to gameplay, it's basically just marketing lingo, play your way, more customization and tools for players. We've already discussed they want every team to feel different. And what's interesting is I feel like a lot of things I've already covered, like dynamic subs, are actually going to be mentioned in this because they showed quite a bit in the trailer since it was gameplay. Whenever it comes to Dynasty, Road to Glory, we know that those deep dives are going to tell us so much more than the trailers because it's really hard to showcase everything in those. But for these, we're just going to get extra details on a lot of things that I might not have fully understood or noticed when I played. We already know with dynamic subs, you can see stuff like wear and tear throughout them. You can just swap players on and off on the field on the fly, and that is where they have introduced dynamic subs, this new system, with another screenshot here. You can see some of the new defensive positions here. We have our edges, we have a Mike, we have a defensive tackle 5 in for defensive tackle 2 just because the other guys are tired, and then their wear and tear injuries that might be bringing them down, their status, their overall, but we already knew this. They're not kidding when they say it couldn't be easier with the sub control. This is just the simple directions on how you want to do that. Just like the traditional depth chart subs, once you make a change, it's going to stick, ensuring your lineup decisions remain strategic, deliberate, and impactful. It's definitely useful, especially if you're trying to match the personnel against a certain formation that's being run against you. Smarter subbing with tailored filters is next. And just by looking through this, I didn't even realize this whenever I played the game. You can go to specific groups like your linebackers or defensive line. Same thing for offense. All you have to do is hit over on the RB or the R1. You combine stuff like this with formation subs, and we are finally being blessed. Real-time health insights subbing isn't just about fresh legs, it's about knowing exactly who's ready to go. So of course that's in the interface as well. We've basically already talked about all this stuff being there, and why wasn't this always here? Internally, the reaction to on-the-fly subs has been awesome. And once you experience it yourself, you'll wonder how you ever played without it. It's one of those intuitive and seamless features that immediately becomes essential. It feels like football, it plays like football, and it's about time it arrived. I thought they were about to go into detail on why it wasn't always there in the first place. I know there are certain features that are going to be in this game that weren't in the last one, that they were going to put out in like a last second title update, one of the last ones of the year, just seeing if they could get it ready in time, even after you get past like the big ones in what, November, December. But I don't know if on the fly subs was one of those, and I'm also glad that they didn't end up doing it because that stuff ended up not being ready. It just shows that they're always trying to improve, even when they don't need to. They could have held off for this title, which I guess they did anyway. Back to the deep dive though, wear and tear everywhere, more depth, more control. We're thrilled by your response to the system. Again, when it was working and it wasn't having those couple of bugs they dealt with, it was solid. Wear and tear was never meant to be just another injury system. It was designed as a gameplay balance mechanic, which I think it's going to do a better job of this year. Seems like they're going to address some of the issues as well right here. Before expanding on our system, our first priority was to address some of the tough to reproduce bugs while continuing to improve balance. I talked with one of the devs about this, and there was a bug that Bengal actually dealt with on one of his first streams where a player would just sit there and float. He'd get stuck in an animation after the play, and it would cause constant wear and tear hits. You can imagine if you get glitched into a tackle animation and it counts it as a hit every single time, all of a sudden that guy is fully red the rest of the game. It was a big problem, but it took them months to figure out how to fix it because they just couldn't get that to reproduce every time they tried, and they tried almost everything. Seems like they're actually going to talk about this specific thing right here, players awkwardly stacking on top of each other with the play ending. It was a major fix that they ended up getting to. Then they carefully reviewed and adjusted every ability in the game, ensuring accurate balancing around how ability impacted wear and tear, hits, and tackles, so that could have had a problem as well. Then we get into stuff like the sliders with wear and tear that you can adjust for your dynasty, or the subs. So for each position group, you can decide how many hits a player should take before they sub out. This is great because you might want your defense to stay on the field longer, but that running back room, you want to rotate through 3 running backs. You can do that now. This just gives you a little bit more control to accommodate these diverse styles. We've introduced fully customizable settings and sliders, which we saw during the actual trailer. And it looks like we're going to have default, we're going to have keep fresh, which is inspired by real-world rotation strategies like Michigan's frequent running back substitutions. So you want to use keep fresh for more running backs. And then grind it out is for teams that want to keep their best players on the field for as long as possible. So maybe think of a Boise State with Ashton Genty. Then you just have custom, so you decide whatever you want. You can use that as well. Each position can now have tailored substitution, which I already talked about. And pain is temporary, but dynasties are forever. Dynasty players were some of the most passionate fans of wear and tear, and probably the group that didn't like it the most too. But all in all, we recognize it's impossible to satisfy everyone's preferences, so that is why the controls are directly in our hands now. They've introduced complete customization of the experience. You want to increase damage from hit sticks and sacks, you can set that yourself. And if you prefer players to heal a little bit faster between quarters during timeouts, that aspect is in your hands as well. Here's just a list of some of the stuff that you're going to be able to adjust. So normal tackles, hit sticks, cut sticks, defender tackle, sack, block, impact block, all sorts of things. And what I'm hoping is this goes back to like last year when they said they wanted Dynasty to be our sandbox, and they're starting to give us more tools to really make it that way. Again, I wish I could say more about some of the Dynasty stuff. We'll get to it in the future when those deep dives come. We're also going to have to talk about whether, through conversations with real-world coaches and players, one reoccurring theme emerged clearly. Weather significantly impacts players' wear and tear, so that is also going to be reflected in this system. Then we saw visualizing the damage in the trailer. If a health dips below something like 60%, you'll see it clearly reflected in pre-snap demeanor. We saw that with Arizona's quarterback, Noah Fafita. And this really adds to immersion for me. He might roll his shoulder, shake out his arm, or gingerly kick out a sore leg as he approaches the line of scrimmage, so we're going to also have quarterbacks probably faking faking injuries. And I feel like that was something they did in last year's game anyway. I noticed multiple times after I threw an interception, you would just see the quarterback acting like something was wrong with his arm, which I thought was funny. Another touch-up they've made to gameplay is toughness, more than just a rating. I had a big talk about one of the devs with this. It really goes back to wear and tear. Your toughness rating determines how much damage a player took to a specific body part after contact. This year, they took it a step further. Now the toughness rating will also affect how quickly they recover, dictating how quickly each body part heals over time. And that means the same rating that helps a player absorb hits also plays a role in how fast they're able to heal from it too. Then we're getting to the Heisman tier. We've already talked about this. Last year's introduction of abilities laid out a strong foundation for capturing the explosive, dynamic essence of college football. And this year they're building on it, rebalancing existing abilities, introducing new ones, expanding archetypes, all sorts of stuff. We've talked about the expanded archetypes. No two share the same ability loadouts. I think there is some crossover with specific abilities. They're just not going to have like the same ones, all of them. I think that makes sense. One of our core objectives this year was capturing what we call the out-of-body experience. I don't know what this is about to be, but it turns out, just skimming over it, what they've basically done is redefined how abilities scale when a player gets hot. This is where your abilities can go through a different range. They can get higher or lower. You know it's Scott writing it whenever he says when a player starts to cook, their physical abilities receive substantial boosts. If the player already holds a platinum tier ability, it automatically upgrades to the new Heisman tier, featuring enhanced effects and powerful new functionality. Again, basically like an X Factor, but the way I understand it, you're still never going to be guaranteed something happens 100% of the time. You'll know exactly when it happens as well. A green flasher on the player's icon signals a tier up. If a player's performance drops, you'll see a red arrow indicating they've dropped a tier. That's something I wish I would have caught. They're going to start talking about some of the new abilities though, like battering ram, and it's part of the contact-seeking running back archetype. I think this could be one of the best ones. Depending on what you do with your wear and tear settings, especially if you're in something like an online dynasty, ball carriers inflict increasing levels of wear and tear on defenders, especially depending upon their ability level. And so if you're a runner and you really wanted to wear out your opponent's defense, make them slower, play a lot worse, all you would do is just try to run through as many dudes as possible. The more that you cream, the less that they can take, and at the Heisman tier, it delivers maximum punishment, making defenders pay for every collision. Then they're going to have to talk about hammer, because this will greatly increase the chance of being able to force a fumble, especially with stuff like the new archetype thumping linebackers. And then for safeties, they're getting a box specialist safety, so there are plenty of new archetypes. I think more than like the 10 that they listed somewhere. I'm not sure where that number came from, but if you reach the Heisman tier with hammer, you'll gain an increased chance of forcing fumbles. And something I didn't realize until just a second ago was they have been able to combine the ability system and the wear and tear mechanic even more. Every physical ability categorizes as either upper or lower body, so it's got to be placed in one of those two categories for this next thing. And that is, as a player's wear and tear accumulates throughout the season, they can lose up to 2 tiers on the corresponding ability, so you have to keep that in mind. If your player's upper body's getting beat up and some of his physical abilities are tied to his upper body, then those are going to start tearing down. And it says, while significant drops are rare, this introduces a crucial layer of strategic roster management. It just adds to wear and tear even more. It really seems like they are doubling down on wear and tear, so I hope you like the system, because if you don't like the system, this isn't good news for you. But I guess they also mentioned if you wanted, you can always turn it off in your sliders, and you can also adjust it to play however you want in Dynasty. Next up, we have 136 Ways of Saturday. This is where they've added 2,800 brand new plays, 45 new formations. We saw this in the trailer. And with the arrival of over 300 coaches, they had to get to work on studying game tape, talking to coaches, attending clinics, and above all, listening to fans, basically on how they wanted to put them in the game. And they're saying this has resulted in a massive leap forward in authenticity, depth, and team identity. I think it'd be hard for it not to cause a leap forward. They said last year every team is someone's favorite team. We mean it, and this year they play like it. I guess they're saying that last year it wasn't exactly where they wanted it. And this time around, playbooks are bigger and deeper than ever. We've increased total capacity by over a third, so that's where I heard what I was talking about earlier when I was watching the trailer. And most offenses now feature 25 plus formations and over 400 plus plays. You're immediately going to notice the difference between Air Force's Flexbone DNA and USC's spread out vertical attack. I would sure hope that you would notice the difference. If you don't, you're probably blind. There would be far bigger issues at hand if you weren't able to tell those two offenses apart. And after months of deep dives and expert insight, every single one of our 136 playbooks has been handcrafted to reflect real-life play calling and personnel packages. From Miami's modern air raid to Iowa State's power spread, every team has a unique feel, which they've probably said like 10 times now. And I guess this is where I'm supposed to confirm or deny whether or not that's true. You're asking somebody that has not played that many games. I can't do that for you. What I can do is I can read this and tell you that it seems like they're going to have a lot of things changing. They're mentioning stuff like new plays with jet power read, read, power read toss, counter bash. You've seen teams like Kansas State and Jacksonville State burn defenses with those. And then they're also bringing up new motion types. They have reload, bounce, escort, and boomerang. All those categories help you layer deception and keep defenses guessing. These match the complexity of motion-heavy offenses like Kansas, Alabama, for sure. And James Madison as well. They've even been able to put in some double motion plays. For the first time ever, you can move multiple players pre-snap. That means you can mimic the chess match seen in real life from programs like Georgia Tech and Penn State too. We also have expanded quarterback run and RPO variety. This is just going to continue to give us depth at those things. Your signal caller now is the full menu. Notre Dame, Utah, and dozens of other teams feature playbooks when the quarterback truly runs the show. And I think something that wasn't mentioned in the deep dive that's in the game is on RPOs, you can now call any hot route that you want. In my opinion, that is a major feature. They've also overhauled route logic in schemes like run and shoot and veer and shoot. Receivers will read leverage, identify cap defenders, and react to the middle of the field safety structure. That means better decision making for our user QBs and more realism on every throw. This new logic also fuels option routes across concepts like halfback choice, hoss wide juke, and slot option. I will say, I can only talk about one of those three, but with halfback choice, it actually works a lot better this year. And there is a new gadget depth chart slot, so you can sub that player into specialized packages across multiple formations. This is a neat feature. Whether he's taking a snap at Wildcat QB or motioning from slot to tailback, he's now a true chess piece, so you want to think of someone like Tyler Warren at Penn State. And they've also, of course, brought over looks from the real 2024 season. It wouldn't be an authentic college football game if they didn't do that. We got Penn State's shotgun gate. I've heard very, very good things about this one. Anything in Penn State's playbook, I'm just going to say I think it is way better than what it was last year. I am definitely going to be trying it out in quite a few of my rebuilds. Their sets even include dual quarterback packages, wildcat looks, offensive line slot alignments. And then you have teams like Ole Miss that would literally snap it directly to their defensive tackle, which means they had to put that in the game too. If you like running the option, Rice's playbook might be one that you want to check out with their pistol wingback. We have Western Kentucky's Power Eye Hawk. It's literally big boy football. 2 defensive linemen lead blocking, fullbacks leaking on play action. I mean, they've just really gone in depth, but I think that's what we should be expecting if they've added almost 3,000 new plays and almost 50 new formations. East Carolina's going to have more stuff in this game from last season. Duke is going to as well. And again, we're going to read stuff like your team plays like your team in college football 25. We saw it last year. We're going to see it this year, but I think it would be impossible. Yes, genuinely impossible for this game not to feel more authentic than last season since they added so much. I mean, I'm sitting here reading a 40+ page deep dive on just the gameplay. This has nothing to do with what's in Dynasty or Road to Glory. And we can talk about field vision too. Height finally matters. There might not be a vision cone on the field, but height will actually make a difference, and this might be where I've noticed some of the accuracy things I've talked about where I think it's an issue. Smaller quarterbacks under center, especially quick drops or throws between the numbers, will experience realistic visibility limitations. And when shorter quarterbacks are surrounded by taller linemen, receiver icons may fade out to reflect obstructed sight lines, which will still allow you to attempt those throws. But you can expect an accuracy penalty mirroring the real-world challenges these players face, so I was not tripping out whenever there were a bunch of missed passes. If they get that right, it's just another thing that could add more depth. They've also expanded the gap between elite and lower tier quarterbacks. High awareness guys are going to quickly and effectively cycle through multiple receiving options, especially the computer, while the lower rated ones with low awareness are going to struggle more significantly. And on top of that, this is just going to make the quarterbacks for the AI play even better because they can recognize the heat too. They saw a heavy reliance on double mug and cover zero blitzes to overwhelm AI quarterbacks, but this time around they've introduced an upgraded hot read system, so maybe it'll be harder to beat them. Quarterbacks with high awareness now identify multiple hot read options immediately after the snap. And basically everything we've talked about so far in the deep dive has been on the offensive side of the ball, but now they're getting to defense wins championships, which is where they did listen. We said that defense needed more depth, presence, and options, so they gave it to us. I already talked about this first thing with my trailer reaction. This is just the new physics-based tackling. And what I always want to see in a game, especially if you're going to play it for thousands of hours like I have, is more variety in tackle outcomes. It says it's all driven by weight, speed, angle, and user input. Now that is what we're going to have to judge after playing for a long time. It might still be based on animations, but Scott's saying that it's not. If you want to pause, there's a few tackle types that they're just going to go through right here that you could read through on, but we're going to keep on pushing forward. And what a lot of these points are just making significant improvements to things that they weren't the biggest fans of in 25. It's making the game better and doing a lot of things to make the game better, which is why I think it's hard for this game to be worse than 25. Like, it's impossible. And another thing we already covered in the trailer, I feel like we hit on quite a few of these already, me is stunts and twist. I showed y'all how to do it too. It's been a feature the community has wanted for years, and in College Football 26, it is finally here. Plus, they've rebuilt the core of offensive and defensive line interactions with one goal in mind: make the trenches feel like the trenches. It means that leverage matters, size matters, technique, play calls, and matchups matter. They were trying to showcase that in the trailer, not just with the defensive line, but also the offensive line. And that's really shown with the block steering stuff. It's a foundational trench feature that gives both users and AI the ability to physically influence the direction of a block once an engagement has been started. This is actually news to me on how to do it, because I have not tested this with the gameplay, so do not ask me if this works or not. What I think of it, I don't know. From just this system alone, it says they've added 700 plus new animations, and then they dropped probably what has to be one of the most important lines in this entire article: this also unlocks smarter play from AI linemen. It is no secret, especially if you played Heisman mode last year, that the offensive line was just trash sometimes. I'm talking you would be blessed and thankful if you got more than 2 seconds back there in the pocket, even with a 90 overall at every position. That is why whenever I read stuff like smarter blocking mechanics, this year blocking's logic has been re-engineered from the ground up, I should be getting excited, but it just feels like something I've read before, especially on the Madden side of things. I think the best way to look at it is probably every so often there's going to be some glitchy play that gets through. Just hopefully it's not all the time where you just have players slipping through 24/7. It's a video game, it's probably not going to be perfect. I just know that I shouldn't be getting sacked instantly on almost every play. And if I go into this game expecting there to never be anything fluky that happens because they've just re-engineered everything from the ground up, then I'm probably going to be left disappointed, but I can hope that it's going to be better than it was in 25. And all the times I've played the game, I can't recall any moment where someone just flew through the offensive line where they shouldn't have. It looked glitchy, but I don't want to say that it can't happen, because I'm sure it's going to be able to at some point. That's just another thing that we're going to have to see over time. Same with the improved targeting system. I think every year they're going to always focus on trying to improve stuff, especially with the blocking side of things, how coverage works, and making everything function better. Whenever we throw stuff in like drastically improved clarity and accuracy, though, that makes me think that it should just be taking this huge step forward. One thing I like to go back to as an example is play action in football games. I feel like play action has been broken in football games, especially like the last 5 years. It always feels like your offensive line breaks down way faster. Even going back to like NCAA football 14, I don't think play action was great. You'd prefer not to have it, and then they say they'd work on it, but stuff still happens. So that's where like all this blocking stuff, it probably did get better. I'm really confident that it did on the offensive line, but not confident enough to say that you're not going to ever see something bad. I've just played video games for like my entire life, and I know, sports game or not, glitches are always going to occur on even some of my favorite games. There's never a time where something's perfect. All of this stuff is not my specialty. I don't think I used slide protection like once last year, so basically this all means nothing for me, though Playmaker might. Not that part right there though. Modern college football is all about creating mismatch. We probably have more stuff with just adjusting the offensive line here. And assuming that they deliver, which I have to give the college football team credit, so far they've delivered on like 98% of the things that they've said in these deep dive articles, then it is going to get more real, more dynamic, and more fun in the trenches. Everything is just sounding more polished. We've talked about the custom zones as well, on being able to just adjust how far back they drop on the fly in the game. I don't think going through the specific directions on how to do that really does anything for us right now. Are you going to remember these words 2 weeks from now whenever you load up the game? Probably not. This does make me think of something pretty important though, that I made sure to ask multiple devs, got the same answer from them, and that was the issue with teams pressing in like the final 30 seconds of the half, teams pressing in the final 30 seconds of the game whenever they have like a 6-point lead. What they discovered was that was an issue that only happened with specific defensive playbooks. Their schemes just caused them to press for whatever reason, and it has been fixed for college football 26. As we read through more of these defensive features like route commit, I just felt like that was something important that I had to share. And I'm gonna be honest, this route commit feature, being able to sell out to try and commit on a route, is something that I don't think I am ever going to use because I just guess wrong. There's only so many things that you can add to coverage gameplay, so it's going to be one of the biggest additions to that specific thing. It lets an individual or your entire secondary aggressively jump routes based on your read of the offense. If somebody's ran like 3 or 4 slants in a row against you, you can now route commit to stop that, and they're going to play it a lot better. You're probably going to get a pick, but here's the problem. This is why I'm not going to use it, because if they decide for that 5th time that they're going to put that kid on a streak instead of a slant, then he is going to dust you. It's like run committing to a side, but for routes. So you can take that risk, but you don't want to take that risk, especially against a great receiver, if they don't end up going in that direction. direction. Some of you probably have the guts for it. I don't. I'm not going to take a risk like that, but it is a feature that they've added. Again, just giving you more control. You have more control than you've ever had before. They're also going to touch on man-to-man coverage. I'm hoping that it's better than it was last year. Elite corners like Leonard Moore will mirror receivers closely, but if you're facing top-tier receivers like Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams, you'll still feel the pressure, but the battle is fair. Winning means your leverage, timing, and positioning were all perfect. Losing means the receiver earned every inch of that separation. I probably skimmed too much to really understand this. I'm hoping that it just means man coverage has gotten better, especially whatever direction you shade on, and the leverage is just another thing that they've completely reworked. They found so many things that they didn't like about 25, and then they made it better. You know, I'd consider myself like a real nerd whenever it comes to reading through a lot of these deep dives, getting every last detail, but for this gameplay side of things, I don't know if it's the fact that it is now 4:30 a.m. or what, but I find a lot of it I didn't even pick up on after I played for all that time, so I'm hoping it's better in the next game. I can talk about this one though. I have an opinion on no eyes, no picks. Last year, some of the full speed contested over the shoulder interceptions felt a little too much. I have definitely raged at least once or twice in a rebuild over that exact thing happening. And this year, they've improved that. They fixed it. When a defensive back doesn't have eyes on the ball, he won't make those unrealistic blind leaps anymore. It's all about context now. When a DB is in trail position, hips turn, running at full speed, you should feel more inclined to take a deep shot, only if your quarterback's good though. If the pass is bad, if it's underthrown, they're still going to be able to get a hand on it. What I will touch on though is you are still going to see that frustrating animation, at least in my opinion. I mean, this is just from limited gameplay experience, but if it is user on user and the user clicks onto that defensive back, I think they can still make the play. But if you're playing just against the computer, it's you versus the AI, they're not going to be able to make that play. To me, that makes a lot of sense. So if the user clicks on, he's then adjusting that player, he's almost going to have that vision to be able to make it. But if there's no one clicking on and making it, like the computer, then they're not going to have no eyes, no picks. I could be completely wrong about that. I just happened to see it in a couple of user games I played, but I never saw it against the computer. Then we got more stuff like swat or pick, choose wisely. It's returning prominence, swatting, not just going for the interception. They've also touched up a little bit on too many wide open interceptions falling incomplete. They're saying defensive backs will finish plays as they should. I didn't get enough interceptions to test this, so I don't know. I'm sure that they did work on it. I will just take Scott's word. He's the lead gameplay developer. They now have him working on Madden 26 as well, and I enjoyed playing Madden 26 gameplay for the first time since like Madden 2021, so I will just trust him. In the time I've spent with him, you can just tell that he really cares about the game and how it does. In fact, he's probably watching this just to hear more feedback on it. So what's up, Scott? Just want to throw it out there too that he was at 2K whenever they had that legendary run of really fun games. So it's not just football gameplay that he's solid with. There are new defensive formations though. Important stuff here. We got the 3-4 tight, the 3-3-5 flex, nickel single mug, nickel 2-4 single mug, nickel load, and nickel 2-4 load, then returning formations coming over from Madden like some of these. There are new defensive plays in these playbooks as well. So it's not just the offensive side of things that's getting all of the upgrades to the playbooks. They've worked on the defense too. And my main takeaway from all of the things that they overhauled was they basically overhauled as many things as they could with the gameplay. They found little bits and pieces they didn't like, they fixed it. And Scott has gone into great detail on quite a few of these. RPOs, this is something that might interest me. And just from the look of it, I'm starting to think that RPOs might not be as effective as they were in 25, but we'll see. That's something I didn't really test that much thinking about it. I'm starting to realize that whenever it comes to talking about gameplay, I am almost useless versus like the Dynasty, Road to Glory stuff. I have a lot more experience that will become viable once those deep dives come. I'm really impressed with the job that they did on the trailer though, because normally with those trailers, they didn't really encapsulate all the things that they've added, but I felt like they did a really good job with that one, and it was less than 5 minutes. I'm just seeing time and time again things that we've already talked about in here, like the safety depth, that you can set them to all these different preferences. Then you got safety width, put them however you want. You got the midpoint shift adjustment as well. This is one of those defensive features that might fly under the radar at first glance. It doesn't for me. It's one that I actually think I'll end up using, especially when I'm trying to stop the run. There's also RPO specific coaching adjustments, so if your opponent is just destroying you with an RPO, you can now adjust to that. And in the past, show blitz meant your entire defense came crowding to the line, safeties, corners, everybody, so then you're pressing, but this time you can show blitz with linebackers only. Defense is a chess match, and it just got a really nice upgrade. They've given us so much more control on that side of the ball. This is mainly for those online players. I want to craft crack into that space more this year. And they've adjusted some of the coaching calls as well for the computer whenever they're playing against you, which is good, but it also means that your coach suggestions are improved as well. I think it's pretty cool that now the computer's going to have delayed shifts, so right before you hike the ball, you might see their defensive players moving all across the field. They'll disguise coverages. They're smarter about formation strength and run type. I think I'm going to really struggle on Heisman this time around. And they've even helped out the computer more whenever it comes to their coverage. Using this new feature they have, defensive AI now understands not just where you're throwing, but also what you're throwing so they can adjust. I feel like that's something that's been in football games in the past, but they've apparently made it better. And they're even being honest. Will you find some ways to attack their new system? No doubt. There's still going to be stuff that works, but they do think it's taken a major step forward to make things more interesting. They want to challenge us a little bit more, and for some of us, Heisman was already difficult enough, so thanks a lot. You've now made it to where I'm just going to throw 6 picks instead of 3. I really like when a game challenges you, though. It doesn't just hold your hand. It's all about making every snap matter, whether you're playing against a rival, grinding through Dynasty, or just testing yourself against the game. It's only going to keep on growing and getting better. There's also these little things. So we have a switch sticks, visual change. I cannot stand this feature, but I wish I could get good at it because it is another thing that adds to the skill gap. I just end up accidentally switching all over the field, and it makes my defense even worse. Pre-play movement from Madden 25 comes to college football. Pursuit has been tuned. What did I say? It's been tuned. So you'll see players with low pursuit ratings unable to properly judge speed and take bad angles. So maybe that means whenever I'm playing against these really good teams, players with high pursuit, that's where they're making more tackles. It doesn't feel as open, but if I play a worse team, then it's even more open than it was last year. Let's just hope so. Expect to see a lot more bat down attempts from pass rushers is another thing. Double move improvements. I mean, they've just worked on so much. And we are still not done yet. Home field advantage, louder, tougher, and more personal. They saw the viral clips. We heard the screams. They actually really loved all the memes whenever it came to Stadium Pulse. They showed us plenty of those during the presentation earlier in Orlando. In college football 26 now, nighttime and rivalry modifiers add an extra edge to schools ranked amongst the toughest places to play. And it's a different kind of chaos. Away quarterbacks will struggle managing the clock. We saw that in the trailer. Just like we've seen visiting quarterbacks in the Swamp lose their composure in crucial moments. Kicking becomes dramatically tougher too. We also saw that in the trailer. Rivalry matchups. Expect more false starts, more broken communication, and more composure breakdowns as the crowd pushes every moment to the breaking point. It's going to be hostile. It's going to be tougher, but we need that, especially whenever you get deep into a dynasty. You want to have features like that one. They've adjusted the hot route disruptions too. They come with added context and depth. So if your receiver's distance from the quarterback is farther away, this is something I've talked about. It's going to lead to a higher risk of miscommunication and confusion. And then you can silence the crowd with a big play, a gain of 20 plus yards to be specific if it results in a first down maybe. If you want specific details on what can happen to the kicker during home field advantage effects now, accuracy meter becomes completely transparent. The ball fades out as your kicker lines up, and the power meter fills white, reducing your visual feedback. With swag out, they're still going. Additionally, based on all your interactions with myself on X, Scott, who always seems to be paying attention, he asked about our favorite celebrations last year. We've kept most of them, alongside adding new celebration and replacing some others, but they're also introducing the ability to walk or jog around after an interception or a touchdown. I'm not sure if it's going to fully be ready on release, but the idea of it is you're going to be able to do stuff like dunk on the upright, though they might have had to take that out because it was a big penalty or something. I'm not sure. Whenever I played, it was somewhat there. Sometimes I would be able to walk around for quite a bit, go around different parts of the field. Other times, it felt like I was just instantly put into a celebration. So that's why it says they're working on it. I'm just really excited to see how far that comes. Just like that, we've reached the end of another deep dive though. These are my favorite things. I'm so glad that they do these. I can really vouch for a lot of things that have been said here just off of conversations I've had. They do read and absorb countless tweets, forum posts, community wish list, Reddit, all of it. The good, the bad, the ugly. It's actually really refreshing. They're going to be back with more on presentation, dynasty, additional modes later this summer. We know that it's all going to be crammed into the last couple weeks. Not sure how I like that. What it might lead to is just a huge storm of hype up to release, since we're going to have to be getting new information basically every few days, it seems like at least. But Scott O'Gallagher and the entire dev team is out. They've been doing a great job. It truly is a blessing, just the fact that we have the college football games back. They seem to be trying to do as much as they can to continue to improve on what they had last year. And I'm super excited for you all to experience more of this stuff coming in this new game in the upcoming deep dives that we're going to get to very soon.